Welcome to the St. Louis Regional Virtual Freight Week STL 2021. Freight Week STL is in partnership with the Inland Marine Expo hosted in downtown St. Louis. I'm Mary Lamy, the Executive Vice President of Multimodal Enterprises, a business enterprise of Bi-State Development. This is our fourth day of Freight Week STL, and our panel discussion will focus on the economic viability and locational advantages of the redevelopment of the former Ford Motor Company in Hazelwood, Missouri, and the Chrysler Assembly Plant in Fenton, Missouri, and the General Motors Assembly Plant in Wentzville. Our panelists with us today include Mark Branstetter, a partner with Panattoni Development Company, and Scott Haley, Director of Development with U.S. Capital Development. First, we need to recognize our sponsors, starting with our presenting sponsor, Global Gateway Logistics, Burns McDonald, the Lockmiller Group, Crawford Murphy and Tilley, or CMT, and Castle. And our supporting sponsors include the Hauser Group and the Jerry Costello Group. And our associate sponsors include SIBA, SICAP, Washington University, the Boeing Group, CDI Engineering, and Jefferson County Port Authority. Our moderator for today's session is Doug Rasmussen, and he's the president and CEO of Steadfast City Economic and Community Partners. Doug is an economic development professional, thought leader, and transactional consultant with more than 20 years of experience in the transportation, logistics, real estate, and economic development industries. His experience includes the St. Louis Regional Chamber, the St. Louis Economic Development Partnership, and a director of incentives, insight selection for the global consulting firm Duff & Phelps. He and his staff are advisors to the St. Louis Regional Freightway, and they're going to lead today's discussion. Welcome, Doug.
Thank you, Mary. I appreciate it, and it's great to be here. I'll take a moment here in a minute to introduce our two esteemed panelists, but before I do so, allow me to set the table a little bit on the history of the auto industry in St. Louis and the real estate industry's relationship to it. As you mentioned earlier in my career, I worked for the St. Louis County Economic Council and the STL Partnership. During that role, I worked on both the retention of the Ford Motor Company plant in Hazelwood, which ultimately was unsuccessful, and then the expansion and later retention and disposition of the two Chrysler plants in Fenton, including the GM plant in Wentzville, which remains very vibrant to this day and is actually recently expanded. The St. Louis region at one time had 4 automotive assembly plants, making it the second largest automotive manufacturing center outside of Detroit. Due to market changes, this status obviously is not today the same today as it was then. However, today's story is an exciting one because it's really about rebirth, resiliency, ingenuity to attract new businesses, the value of public-private partnerships, and the excellent locational attributes of the St. Louis region, all of which are evidenced by the successful redevelopment of the Ford plant into Aviator Park and the Chrysler plant into the Fenton Logistics Park, and also the continued expansion of General Motors in Wentzville. Just to give the audience a little history on all three before we go to our panelists, General Motors today is over 4,300 direct jobs. It recently received a $1.5 billion investment into its facility in 2019, making it the largest private business investment in the state of Missouri's history. Additionally, there was a 1.3 million square foot logistics center building constructed by North Point Development for GM suppliers, which is almost 100% occupied. The Ford Hazelwood plant closed in phases in 2003 and 2006. Panattoni Development purchased the property in 2008 and redeveloped it into Aviator Park. It's a 160-acre park that now has 9 buildings, 2.6 million square feet of space, over 1,150 employees, and $250 million in investment. The Chrysler plants in Fenton at one time was a 2.5 million square foot auto assembly plant on about 300 acres. U.S. Capital Development purchased those properties in 2014 to develop Fenton Logistics Park. And they have now completed 5 buildings, which are 100% occupied, and they have 4 other buildings under construction, totaling 1.3 million square feet. In total there, the development is about $300 million in investment and about 2,000 jobs. So you can see that on our two former auto plant sites, our two panelists here today and their development companies, and through their leadership, they've led a tremendous effort in revitalizing those locations. And so I'm excited to learn more about how they did that and also share that with the audience. So why don't we do this now? I'm going to turn to each of our panelists. We'll go one by one, ask them to introduce themselves and talk a little bit about their experience, and then we'll have more specific questions later. But let me start with Mark Branstetter, who's the partner with Panettone Development. Mark, would you please introduce yourself and talk a little bit about your firm and its activity in the St. Louis market?
Yeah, Doug, happy to. Thanks for having me on the panel. I appreciate you referring to Scott and I as esteemed. I don't know that that's true, but then after Mary referred to you as a thought leader, it might very well be appropriate. So I think those titles are fantastic. As Doug said, my name is Mark Branstetter. I'm a partner with Panettone Development Company. I've been with Panettone for roughly 15 years or so. I cover the greater Midwest, but predominantly St. Louis because selfishly I live here. Panettone is about a 35-year-old development company by almost any metric. It's if it's not the largest, one of the largest developers in the country, and we have 12 offices in the U.S. and 2 in Canada, 10 in Europe, I believe. Haven't been there in a while, as you might know, and pretty active in specifically this kind of space in logistics and industrial. Personally, I've been involved in commercial real estate, specifically development in St. Louis, for about 30 years. Again, mostly, I've done some projects that are non-industrial, but most of what I tend to do tends to fall in the industrial or logistics category.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mark. Appreciate that. Scott Haley is here, Director of Development for U.S. Capital Development. Scott, would you please introduce yourself and your company?
Sure. So thanks, Doug. Well, first, I wanted to real quick thank Mary and FreightWays and the whole group and Doug and your team. I mean, guys, I think you guys put together an exciting conversation today, and I'm excited. I think Mark is as well, to be able to talk about what we've been able to do here, and hopefully people can pick up a little bit on that. So thanks again for inviting us and putting together an engaging topic. Again, my name's Scott Haley with U.S. Capital Development. I'm the Director of Development. I've been with U.S. Capital Development for probably 15, 16, 17 years. You kind of forget how long you've been at some spots. But U.S. Capital Development is a St. Louis-based company. We've been focused on the St. Louis region for a long time. However, in the last 8 years or so, we have expanded outside the Midwest and work on a national level. We focus on industrial development. Similar to Mark's company, we're not the size of Panettone, but we're doing a great job making our name known. We also focus on corporate build-to-suits, and we've done several for a lot of major companies. My background outside of being on the development side, I had a background in urban planning. I worked as an urban planner in economic development for several years. I went to the dark side and worked on the development side, and it was a real rewarding career at the beginning, but really rewarding on the end, and was able to leverage both of those into some exciting opportunities here.
Great. Thank you, Scott. Thank you for being here, and thank you, Mark, as well, for being here. Okay, why don't we let's get started, shall we? Mark, I want to go to you first. The Ford Motor plant was really the first auto plant in St. Louis to shut down, and so you were the leader in this in terms of coming in and looking at that as an asset that could be repositioned, redeveloped. Tell us a little bit about what made your organization want to take that on as a redevelopment project.
Well, craziness had maybe a little bit to do with it. There's an old axiom in real estate. It's location, 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 right? Everybody's heard that. And for us, as we looked at the site that was Ford and became Aviator, it's 160 acres, purely urban infill, sort of before that term became even real cool like it is today. adjacent to all the major interstates. 270 is the loop, and 70 and 170, and Lindbergh, which is a major thoroughfare, adjacent to Lambert Airport, and was rail served by Norfolk Southern. So it had a whole lot of arrows in the quiver that, if you could see through what was sitting on top of it and you could get to the dirt, then it became a really interesting site for us.
Great. Yeah, absolutely. Very, very well positioned, well located, and some good basic infrastructure. Scott, what about you? What made U.S. Capital Development want to take on the Fenton Chrysler plants as a possible logistics park and turn it into Fenton Logistics Park?
Well, I think it was a great opportunity from the get-go. I think there was a lot of people who looked at this from a variety of uses. Early on, I think there was a lot of people who thought it would have been a great outlet mall or some other retail, and our company looked at it as really what was needed down there is to take one of the largest pieces of ground south of 70 and be able to develop industrial for the southern part of our metropolitan area that had little or no, opportunities for people to move into St. Louis or expand their businesses and stuff like that. So we looked at that. It was one of the most talked about scenarios out there in St. Louis. So we thought, all right, we're able to do something in St. Louis since we're doing a lot of stuff out nationally. Why don't we do this at home, invest our capital, and really kind of give a rebirth to the Chrysler plant. Our goal was to ultimately, to recreate jobs on the site, and I think we've done that. So that was one of the drivers as well. I think the other thing was just, the pride that a lot of people had with the Chrysler plant. I think everybody in St. Louis or in the region had somebody that worked at their Chrysler plant. It was an uncle, an aunt, or a father, or whatever. So there was a lot of emotional end of it, and we took pride in that and understood that, based on our experience, we could do what we thought we could do. And early on, our initial master plans of developing it to a couple million square feet of industrial and creating jobs really has come to fruition. And I think it's really probably exceeded what most people thought back in 2014. The last part of this was that, why we took it on is that nobody was really stepping up. We took the risk. We actually took the property down without having it entitled. We didn't have any economic development tools. We just knew it was a great story, and that the city, the county, the state, businesses were all going to come behind this thing, because I think this was ripe for what it needed to be, and really kind of put this back on the St. Louis map.
Absolutely. I think the risk that both of your firms took in terms of that initial, kind of, I guess, leap of faith, if you will, knowing that the underlying location was great and all that, and that you would have the support of the community, but certainly not having that in place at the get-go. So kudos to you both for taking these properties on. And I know there's lots of communities that, don't have development companies like your firms that can kind of come in and have that mentality. So that's a huge component to this. Let's talk a little bit. I want to go back to some of the redevelopment challenges you both had with the site a little bit later, but let's flip it a little bit to the current tenants and some of the activity that you've seen as you've developed these properties. When we were getting ready for this panel, we actually did some work, looking at the GM expansion, and just going back to that for a minute, and to the supplier building that's out there as well. One of the themes that we heard around that was that, the GM plant in Wentzville has thrived because it's one of the most productive plants from a workforce perspective in their entire system. And I'm wondering how much, if you all could talk a little bit about, your various experiences with tenants and businesses that you've attracted, what you've heard in terms of not only access to workforce, but also if a productive workforce and access to a productive workforce was a key driver to, winning some deals at your various development parks. So maybe Mark, do you want to try that one first?
Yeah, I'll touch on it. I mean, the quick answer is yes. right? I mean, it's eminently important. You know, I'd be hard pressed to point to many deals that are of significant size of late that you haven't seen some form of a workforce analysis done by the tenant to try to find out if they can come up with the labor, particularly for anybody that's employing a number of employees here. So we see that consistently, and I think that's the reason why when I sort of said this is an urban infill project, and same goes for Scott's. You know, you're surrounded by you're surrounded by residential density and workforce development already built in without the need for significant travel, right? So you already are infill, you already have access, and then for our project, we have connectivity directly with Bi-State and with Metro. So you know we're able to move a lot of employees into and out of the site very effectively. So in a word, yeah, it's very important.
Yep. Great. And then I imagine some of the skills that are available in the community drove, certain tenants being able to locate there and feeling comfortable and confident that it would be a good operation for them. I imagine that was part of your experience.
Yeah, it was for sure. You already had this trained workforce that was present previous, right? And the infrastructure surrounding it in terms of businesses and support businesses that were set up to support what was here previous that are still now supporting what's here today.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. Scott, how about you? I know that one of the attributes of the Fenton Logistics Park is what you were just touching on, which is it's kind of a large, southwestern to the region kind of park, and probably opens up maybe even a different labor shed, if you will, somewhat compared to some other parts of the region and whatnot. So talk a little bit about maybe your experiences with your tenants and when you're working on deals and, in terms of landing tenants and how workforce development has played a role in that.
Great, I will. Thank you. Similar to Mark's situation, what we were able to leverage and what we truly believed was that, these 10,000 jobs that either out of the Ford plant or the Chrysler plant, they just didn't evaporate. They were still here and they were still skilled, and they might have went to a slightly different industry, but the strength of the employee base here and St. Louis's dedication on good work ethic and all that really played into, us really thinking that, revitalizing the Fenton plant would really pay off. And basically, as you talked about, being in the southern part of the St. Louis metro area, there wasn't a lot of other industrial development. Mark's, development and others, really dotted along 70 or further north. And so we were really kind of the lone wolf to the south, and we were able to leverage that existing workforce in the southern half of St. Louis and the counties that surround St. Louis to the south. So we had a good draw factor that was still there, and I think the existing businesses down in Fenton really understood that, and that's why there's the vacancy rates down there are very low. A lot of owner-occupied businesses because they're close to that workforce, and it's been a real positive. So on the attraction side, I think a lot of people wanted to remain there. So what we did here is allow the several million square foot of industrial that was probably 30, 40, 50 years old surrounding this. We were able to build bigger buildings. A lot of these businesses relocated into the park because they didn't have any opportunities and still be close to the workforce. So we did that, gave opportunities to like CoreLink, BJC, BASF, one of the largest, chemical companies, to be able to consolidate 2 or 3 buildings, get into a more state-of-the-art facility, and still be close to their workforce. And the best part of this is that all of those facilities that, people thought, hey, we're moving, chairs on the deck of a ship. We weren't. As soon as those people committed, the backfill of those spaces where they were located, even before we started building those buildings for those folks, which is, I think, is a real attribute to St. Louis and our development there. And then one last point regarding, new business coming in. We had our cardiology company that was a gentleman that was California, went to WashU, and started a business and came back to St. Louis based on what he learned when he went to WashU here at medical school. And so he started a business that's located in Fenton, and he's got a couple hundred employees, 50 or 60 pharmacists, which I think is a great attribute to the St. Louis market here and what people recognize when they're from out of town.
Right, absolutely. And I love that point about sort of the cycling through of companies, right? The companies had this demand for the space, which your park helped satisfy, and you expanded them into Fenton Logistics Park, but then that freed up space for other companies who needed those old buildings or smaller buildings to backfill. I think that's a great story in terms of, just kind of the local business environment and seeing that kind of activity. I think obviously is a great thing.
Yeah.
So great. So in addition to, those were two fantastic answers. Thanks, gentlemen. In addition to the workforce, let's just talk about a couple other keys to success. And I know one of them that I'd love to also hear as part of this answer, some of your, let's say, immense redevelopment challenges, because, redeveloping a 160 acre Ford Motor Company plant or a 300 acre, two Chrysler plants on 300 acres is not for the faint of heart. And I imagine you both faced immense redevelopment challenges when you decide to take these on, but also through, and it's been referenced a little bit already, but through, public-private partnerships and other things that you were able to tap with, state governments, local governments, that type of thing. That was probably a key to success. So maybe let's talk a little bit about some of the challenges, the redevelopment challenges, and then how you tapped into those public-private partnerships to help make these projects a reality. Mark, would you want to start on that one for us?
Yeah, I will. How much time do I have, Doug?
We've got time, and I'm going to mute this siren. Go ahead.
Okay. So, I first engaged the Ford site in 2006, right, which is many, many moons ago. And at the time, so it's 160 acres, but it was covered up by a 3.3 million square foot manufacturing facility. And, I joke sometimes that it is real. If you had the pieces and parts to make a car, you could have made a car. Because everything was left behind by Ford. There were 73 robots that were still left in the facility. The tracking system, the chain drive system, all the pits were fully equipped. I could start a car company if I so chose, right? Fortunately, I didn't, but I could. So it was covered up by that, and you got to figure out how to get through that to get to the dirt, right? So. There was a massive, obvious demolition and recycling project that really was in front of us. And it took us probably 2 years even to get to that. We closed in 2008. Obviously, the financial crisis happened in 2009. It was brilliant timing. I'm good about timing too, right? So I got to work through that. If there was a positive is that, during that couple-year lull, we were able to really take our time and fix what we needed to fix here from a demolition and remediation standpoint. And then we had, some remediation from an environmental perspective that we had to do with the site as well. I would say, we were fortunate in that we had outstanding, I'll say partners here, because there were a lot of people that were wanting to see this done, right? Originally, Ford didn't want to see the building demolished. They wanted to see the slab go down, so no one would have to tear this thing apart. The city of Hazelwood was very instrumental in convincing them otherwise. Doug, if you were involved at that moment, so very instrumental in convincing Ford to pivot and allow for a redevelopment. So through this development process or demolition and remediation process, we had Ford effectively as a partner, right? Their consultant Golder, our consultant ATC, two of the largest environmental remediation companies in the world. We had the state of Missouri, the city of Hazelwood, St. Louis County, our equity partners, our lenders, all were extraordinarily flexible. I would say if there's anything to note on these projects that is a must, is flexibility, because you're going to run into things that you didn't anticipate and you just have to deal with them. And fortunately, what we ran into, we were ready for. And I think at the end of the day, we have a project that we're really super proud of. But patience and flexibility is key, right? Patience and flexibility is key.
Absolutely. I think about what the site was when it shut down and what it is today, and it's just a tremendous transformation. So great work. I mean, really, it's fantastic. Scott, how about you? Let's talk a little bit about some of your immense redevelopment challenges and how you worked with your partners both on the public and private side to effectuate your success.
Yeah. Well, we actually got to utilize Mark's experience and be able to leverage in some of the things that he learned from afar. And I think that even though there's similarities, there's a lot of things that were different. We didn't have Chrysler as a partner. They were stepped away. We had to purchase this out of from receivership of the U.S. bankruptcy court, and so we had little or no access to the site to do any investigation. We basically had to make some assumptions based on a variety of different things, and so the risk level was extremely high. And I think that the challenges there were immense and a lot of unknowns. So, but unlike Mark, is that the county, the state, a lot of people were involved in the dismantling of that facility. So we actually purchased the ground with no verticality. All the steel, all the copper was recycled. However, nothing was taken from the 8.3 million square feet of concrete slabs that made up the building, the parking lots, and all of that. So that is where it became worrisome there. But however, we overcame that. We developed a tremendous relationship with the city of Fenton, St. Louis County, and the state of Missouri. As I mentioned before, we went in not having any entitlements, nor having any economic development tools to accomplish what was needed to be done. The state of Missouri is great. We amended a couple state statutes to allow for this to occur. St. Louis County, with consent of the city of Fenton, worked through the TIF program, and we were able to get those in place to put all new infrastructure. I mean, it was all new, water, sewer, anything you think about was new. Roadways, all high. We built the highway standards inside the park. We actually had to bring back, extend electric a mile from the substation, because that was all demoed and recycled, and so everything's new. And so, but we worked without that support, which was critical, and the cooperation with those governmental agencies, as well as the support from the school district of Rockwood and Fenton Fire, both who realized long-term the benefit that this development would create economically for the surrounding communities and the county and the state, was realized. And so I think that without those partnerships and us taking a risk and people understanding that what could happen after these things got developed. And we've actually been in vertical for 4 years, and we've accomplished 1.5 million square feet, with another 400,000 or 500,000 square feet that'll probably be completed here in the next 12 months. I think far exceeded whatever timeline was communicated. And I think the jobs, I know we reference at least 2,000 jobs. I'm sure we're going to be well north of that, and it gives us great pleasure that. And I think that the people who took that risk, the politicians and everybody who said, I think this is a great model on being able to give rebirth to a site that generated tons of jobs and economic tools that help provide governmental agencies revenues to subsist on and grow on. So I think that effort is, as Marcus experienced with the Panattoni efforts up there at Aviator, are, should be well noted. I'm glad we're doing this today to, recognize how these developments have helped St. Louis.
For sure. Yeah. And I think about probably even the ongoing benefits of those, because I know that in addition to the redevelopment side, you can still tap, some of the, the 353 tax abatement tool, the super TIF tool for users and things like that when it's appropriate. And I know that, certainly the city and the county and the state have played a huge role in positioning that. I like your word too, Scott, about model, because I think, without those levels of government support, I mean, this maybe doesn't go quite as well. And I think there's a lot of other communities, when we do site selection work around the country, where we've seen where, maybe that kind of, government support isn't there. And certainly it's, big redevelopment opportunities like this do take those partnerships. And so congrats to you both as well for getting that put together, because I know that's not that's a heavy effort, a heavy lift, and a heavy effort.
Mark, hey, Doug, can I add one other component?
Yeah, please.
I think that Mark, his experience is based on the type of users he's got in his park, is that when people are looking at St. Louis or sites, they didn't want to hear about what's new, what's old. They wanted to understand what the capital that was put into the infrastructure. And I think that was a big component on people looking at both of our sites, and that they knew that they were coming in and being on a foundation that there is new fiber optics, new water, sewer, all of those things that site selectors look for when they're doing national searches or regional searches. And when companies are looking to say, hey, we're going to come and put a flag down here, they like to know that all the infrastructure there is going to be there to support their needs and future needs, from the electric, the volume of water, all of those components. I think that goes unsaid when we talk about economic development tools. Those where all the dollars go.
For sure. No, that's a great point. Thank you for adding that. That's an excellent point. Okay, well, let's shift just a little bit here as we sort of think about the future, I guess. And one thing that we've reflected a lot on the last 10 or 15 years and your experience in redeveloping these parks, and obviously both of your firms are involved in a lot of things, both locally and nationally. Let's talk a little bit about what you might see for the St. Louis region going forward from an industrial site selection point of view. So if we had a crystal ball here today and we could look out 5 or 10 years from now, what do you think we would learn? What do you think we would see? Mark, do you want to try that one for us?
Yeah, I'll try. Right, I'll try. So I think we were, by all accounts, from an industrial standpoint across the country, going, into COVID, right? I think everyone assumed that we were in sort of the later innings of a pretty good industrial run across the country, right? And there wasn't really a whole lot of sign that it was slowing up, but it just felt like it's been going pretty well for a while. Right. And, just be aware and be cautious was basically where we were, right? As horrible and negative as COVID was for so many sectors of the economy, it's really been an accelerator for the industrial world. And I think that, over the next couple of years, it's going to continue to accelerate, right? Logistics are becoming much more important. Import-export patterns are highly focused upon now. Consumer buying habits, and we all know what happened, where people used to go and now how they get their products today. And there's infrastructure that needs to be built to support that changing dynamic. So I think the world's it was heading that direction, but I think it was going to take some time for it to ultimately get there, but it was always going to end up at the same point, right?
Right.
I think this past 12 months has been an accelerator that. Now, I don't know if that accelerated it 2 years or 5 years or 7 years, but it absolutely accelerated it. And, St. Louis is a benefactor of that. You look at other Midwestern metros that are heavy into logistics, and the activity and the absorption is really, really strong. So I think you'll see that here. I think you'll see it continue to accelerate over the next couple of years. I'm real bullish on St. Louis right now, and I think we're in for a really good run.
Excellent. That's great. I love that thinking, and it's great to hear your perspectives. Scott, would you have anything you'd like to add to that, or any thoughts how you see the future playing out?
Yeah, I mean, certainly. And Mark and his company, and it's seeing stuff nationally. I mean, we all love St. Louis. St. Louis has many great assets, and we all hope that. Trying to project 5 or 10 years, I think if we're never, I want to say never, I would love for us to be able to get on a path like other regions in this country are getting on. And I think that starts with, just ensuring that businesses that are here, that we're understanding what their needs are now, before it's too late. And, if we have to retain those businesses, not just attract new business. If we can't retain what we got, it's difficult to get, use that to leverage that for new businesses. So, and I know we try to do a good effort collectively to do that, but I think that's important. I think, at the governmental level, and that's in both the county and the state, is really to evolve and refine the economic development tools that we have, and really get ahead of the game and it sounds cliche, we want to be proactive rather than reactive. And I think that there's things that we can do out there that make sense, regardless of where you stand on economic development tools. They are a necessity. And I think both of these projects, allude to that. So if we can do that, I think those are, two key components. But I think that, the other one ties into that is having these economic development tools is really kind of focused on the transportation and infrastructure that's needed to support the users and the development that our developments have shown. Without that, you're not going to be able to attract companies or site selectors interested coming to St. Louis. And, I think that those three components are things that will help us understand where we're going to be 5 or 10 years from now. In the short term, the next 5 years, I do see, St. Louis is still growing from that, probably not at the rate that we're seeing in other parts of the country, but we've never been really kind of a trendsetter in that standpoint. But I agree with Mark with all the advent of, how we retail, how we deliver products, the change of attitude in terms of those things. Maybe the pandemic certainly had, that, but I think we were trending that way, and now that's accelerated, just like Mark has said. So I'm very bullish the next 5 years in St. Louis, and I think for the country. I just hope we can take care of economic development tools and retain what we got, so we can attract new people to the region.
Yep, no, that's an important message, and I appreciate you putting your old economic developer hat on too, because that's an important message that, obviously the existing businesses, however they can be supported, and certainly the tools is another thing. I mean, clearly they were critical components of both these properties being redeveloped. We mentioned the GM Wentzville plant earlier, local, state incentive package for those 4,000 jobs. There was some county road board money for the new, logistics, $1.3 million logistics center facility that was built there as well. There was a tax abatement. I mean, all of these things are part of facilitating even broader and more deep growth and additional job creation. So they're critical components. Okay, well, this has been fantastic. So again, I think, having sort of been personally involved in both of these properties, I mean, my own crystal ball, if I were looking at this, 10 or 15 years ago, I probably wouldn't have envisioned us being in this conversation, and to your efforts and both your efforts in creating what you have. I mean, it's just really incredible to think about what what occurred at both of these locations and what's there now, and all the job creation and the modern, development that's been effectuated. And I think it's just a great story of, rebirth, resiliency, the excellent location, the ingenuity, and the determination, frankly, to get things done. And so again, congrats to you both. Congrats to our, public and private partners out there who assisted you as well in terms of helping these projects occur. Mary, I'll turn it back over to you now, and we'll look forward to your wrap up. And again, Scott and Mark, thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
Doug, excellent job. You did fantastic. Thank you, Doug. Thank you, Scott. Thank you, Mark. Thanks for sharing these three unique stories. I think the model for success for each of these locations focused on the bi-state region's long history of supporting our manufacturing and logistics cluster that I think started with the location, proximity to infrastructure, workforce, a climate that supports productivity and shared resources, and I think most importantly, a business climate that has a can-do attitude with a foundation of collaboration, forward thinking, flexibility, and partnerships. And these are the examples of success, I think, that are moving the St. Louis region in our industry. So thank you. Last couple things we need to do is we need to thank our sponsors one last time. And as a reminder, the St. Louis Regional Industrial Real Estate Market Report was also released today. And tomorrow's panel discussion for Freight Week will include the Illinois Route 3 manufacturing corridor in southwestern Illinois. This is another example of the region repurposing vacant industrial land, and the release of the 2022 St. Louis Regional Freightway Priority Project List will also come out tomorrow. We encourage all of you to take advantage of all of this information, as well as the information that was released over the last 3 days of Freight Week, and visit the freightway.com website.